guys, this is Jenny, and I am going to do a hopefully fairly quick layout, a scrapbook layout for the Crafters Workshop for July. And I'm actually going to go back and use a couple stencils from the, actually there's a couple from the new collection and a couple from, or maybe one from the older set from summer. I'm not sure. They'll be listed below in the description, so you can check that out. I think the ones I'm thinking about using are the newer ones. But anyway, I have a bunch of paints and a couple different molding pastes and a couple little tiny stamps and some ink. And I may use a couple die cuts or some other things. I have gone ahead and cut this out on the silhouette, and it's a file that's sort of just a grid. There's 9 squares, and my plan was to, on another piece of paper behind this, have several different, and in each grid have a different color of paint or whatever with the with this stencil. And the this is the 12 by 12, and then the 6 by 6 maybe for a mini version of that, or to repeat it. So I'm not sure, I mean, whether I'm gonna, you know, what I was thinking about. I just thought it'd be nice, kind of, because they're so straight and organized, and then I might use a few of these leaves to cut out to have sort of as details. And then these are the photos, which are of, my husband grows tomatoes every year, and he's kind of obsessed with it. So this was a salad he made the other day, and he took photos of the process along with it. It's sort of a caprese salad, but he actually put in blueberries and grapes. And anyway, I thought it was neat colors and kind of a neat idea of the sort of process, you know, moving from the beginning to the end, and I thought it would look good with some of these very, you know, organized shapes in this grid. So that's the plan. I mean, I pretty much know what I'm going to do. I just don't know exactly how it's going to come about. And so I'm going to go ahead and pull my mat off this frame of the background paper and get started. We will see where we go. Okay, I'm going to walk through a little bit of this with you guys. I took the silhouette cut piece off of the mat and was just trying to decide how I wanted to arrange the photos to see how many of the sort of stenciled grid pieces I was going to need to do. I had 4 photos, but I really thought it would be good to just sort of have 3 and keep it an odd number. And I'm going to back it up with a piece of craft paper. So I start taking mist, and this is this gold color shine, which I love. And I just sprayed too close, and I sprayed too much, and so none of that really came out the way I wanted it to. But I really wanted to use some gold, so I decided to use embossing paste, and it was lovely, so I ended up using that part instead. And I use a variety of different those different mediums because I wanted different textures and obviously different colors, because that gave me a little bit more color. I love that way that yellow one turned out. It was very it sort of faded out nicely, and it was a nice, bright, vivid, crisp image or shape. So then I do a darker green and a red. I knew I wanted to have the red in the middle for my title and to sort of tile the red tomatoes in. And then I decided I wanted to do maybe use one of these smaller ones and do a distress ink. And I couldn't find a color I wanted. I didn't want to go too dark, and I didn't want to repeat any of the colors I already had. So I ended up using a chalk ink that was a very light taupe color, and it came out great. I was worried because it kept kind of overlapping some of the stencil, and I was trying to make sure I didn't get it too muddy without waiting too long in between drying times. So anyway, I used a little dauber and that mini 6x6 one and stenciled that piece on. And then the final one I decided to use, I don't believe it's the mini one. It's the opposite sort of triangles, and I decided to use some molding paste, and I used a little bit of acrylic ink just to kind of tint it a little bit. I wanted a little bit lighter shade than that other green, so I did use the mini one. So I did the same thing there and just moved it around, and it did get kind of muddy where it overlapped, but then I ended up putting something on top of that, so it wasn't too bad. If I had been more patient, then I could have waited in between times, but not patient. I wiped off the stencils in between each one, and then I'm going to set that aside to dry, I believe. At this point I'm trying to remember how many I need, and then I realized that I've got 6. So I had a little piece of a die cut that I just was in a scrap pile that was watercolored, and it was a leaf, and I decided I wanted to use a couple other leaves, so I used that rest of that molding paste that I had already mixed up, and this tiny 6x6 stencil that is called the mini herbarium, however you say that, and made those little tiny leaves. And then I'm going to cut those out once they dry and use them as sort of little accent pieces. Now that that's pretty much dry, I'm going to go ahead and cut out the squares to place behind my die cut piece. And once I get all those cut out, I'm going to put them behind the sort of framed pieces, and I adhere them with washi tape, and I go back later and stitch around the outside after I do a couple other little things. So I'm going to play a little bit of music and let you see where that takes me, and then I'll come back in just a minute. Okay, I'm back here pretty much at the end. You can see where I placed everything and my title, and then I did a good bit of stitching around the all of the grid squares, some in zigzag, and just kind of randomly changed it up between just a regular stitch and that. And that was me cutting out the rest of the little leaves that I had done the molding paste on. And I had also stamped a couple of these little tiny stamps on paper that then I punched out and used sort of as embellishments. That's the part that I kind of covered up a little bit of that smudgy top center green molding paste one. And I put those on pop dots so that they kind of, give it a little bit of a dimension there. And I just used a little bit of twine that I wound up and put there. It was like a natural twine because it reminded me of the twine that my husband's got, kind of, holding up all the tomato plants. And anyway, so this is pretty much it. I go ahead and glue that little top piece there and trim off some things. I added a couple little cork pieces to add in some more of that kind of natural element and to just give it a little bit of a darker color. I stamped the date at the bottom and then write a couple things on the side, and that is pretty much it. You can see the close-ups and then the final product at the end. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure you stop by the craftersworkshop.com/blog to see more.